Let's talk about one of the more popular game bird species in the state of Georgia and really the U.S., and that is the wild turkey. Okay, wild turkeys in the United States have really four major subspecies. There is another one that's found in very small numbers that branches off into Mexico, but they really recognize four main species. There's going to be the eastern subspecies, the Rio Grande subspecies, the Merriam subspecies, and the Osceola. The eastern, as I'm holding up here, is going to have kind of darker tips on the tail fan. Of course, it's found all along the East Coast from Maine down into Georgia and as far west into Kentucky and kind of the Alabama and Mississippi areas. Okay, this is the largest subspecies and population numbers with around 5.1 to 5.3 million in number. The total population estimate is anywhere from 6.5 to 7 million as of 10 years ago. The second subspecies is the Rio Grande. The Rio Grande can be found in the Texas, New Mexico area and might even branch into some of western Arkansas, but it's a little bit smaller. The population numbers are around 1 million. And then behind that, we're going to see the Merriam subspecies. And it's denoted kind of, the Rio Grande and the Merriam look very similar, but the Merriam is going to have in their tail fan a lot whiter than the Rio. And then it gets to the dark eastern like we saw before. But that light tips on the tail fan and also on the breast feathers of the male and female denote the Merriam very well. The Merriam has roughly 330,000 in population numbers. And then last but not least is going to be the Osceola, which is one of the more rare of this subspecies, which is found in kind of northern central Florida on down to South Florida. Some interesting turkey facts is turkeys have anywhere between 5,000 and 6,000 feathers on their body. They can fly up to 55 miles per hour, and they can even run up to speeds of 25 miles per hour. The males are called toms or gobblers, and the females are called hens. And when talking about the hens, they're usually smaller, they're duller in color. Their scat may have droppings in a mound shape versus a tom scat that's going to have it in a J shape. So let's talk a little bit about the hen and how the reproduction works in a wild turkey. It's really pretty fascinating if you think about it. The hen, as we look here, we've got some eggs. The hen will lay a clutch of eggs, so a set of eggs in a 2-week period. And that clutch is going to be anywhere from 10 to 12 eggs. So they spend 2 weeks doing that, and then they have to incubate those eggs for another 28 days. Of course, after that 28 days, they've got a bunch of baby turkeys that we call poults running around, and those poults, it'll take them another 2 weeks before they can fly. So you're looking at roughly a 2-month period where turkeys can be able to fly. And as you can imagine, the predation when it comes to that between the foxes and coyotes and raccoons, owls and hawks and other large birds that might kill these poults, it's really tough for them to make it from start to finish. A recent study showed that up to 50% of the poult hatch kill or mortality could be attributed to the raccoons, where they will basically bust the nest and eat the nest. So just that in itself contributes to what has been a slow decline over the past 10 years of the wild turkey. We saw very low numbers in the 1940s, and they really enacted strict conservation practices in order to bring that number back and lower the bag limits. But in the early 2000s, the population exploded, but now we've seen a decline over the past 10 years. And that can be attributed some to habitat loss and a lot of it to predation as well. So I would be expecting probably a decrease in the bag limit or season dates in the future. When you're looking at aging a turkey, it's turkeys or poults are hatched, of course, in the late spring, probably end of May, going into June. They're going to start sitting on their nest, of course, a month before that. But when you look at aging them, after about a year, you'll have what's called a jake. And I don't have an example here, but the jake beard is going to be roughly about that long, anywhere from 4 to 5 inches. And they're going to have nubs for spurs. Of course, the toms and the male turkeys have beards and spurs, whereas the females do not. Now, there are exceptions to the rules. Some hens can have beards, but for most parts, the males have these beards and spurs and the hens don't. But that jake is going to have a 4 to 5 inch beard with nubs on the spurs, whereas a 2-year-old bird, which is depicted here, is going to have a spur that's anywhere from a half to maybe 3/4 of an inch long, maybe just shy of an inch. It's going to have a 9 to 10 inch beard, okay, and that's how we kind of look at what roughly would be a 2-year-old bird. These are called subordinate gobblers because typically there's a Mac Daddy around there that's a little bit more mature, got a little bit longer spur length, and will beat up on these guys a little bit more. But of course, the big indicator on age, the beard will be so close that you can look at these spurs and you can see there's your 2-year-old, which is of course a lot longer spur than a jake would be. But then you have a 3-year-old. You can see the difference in thickness and length of that spur of the 3, maybe even 4-year-old turkey versus the 2-year-old. And the beard will be a little bit longer as well, as this one is, probably 10 to 11 inches in length. So that's how you distinguish a jake from a 2-year-old to a 3-year-old, and so forth and so on. Some toms can have multiple beards. They can have 3, 4, 5, 6, just depending. It is a rarity, like a non-typical deer would be for a deer hunter. But you would score turkeys based on beard length, spur, and weights. Of course, I mentioned the exceptions to the rule. There's been some abnormalities discovered. Hens can grow beards. Of course, hens have been known to gobble and they can strut, but for the most part, your males are going to strut. They're going to show off. They're going to have that real colorful head to attract the females and try to show off all their coloration and prove that they're the big mature bird in order to win over her heart. But in those harems, you're going to see 2 or 3 mature gobblers, and then they'll split up about the time turkey season starts, which is roughly mid-March. The bag limit on mature turkeys is 3 per year, so that's what you can kill, and it's of course denoted by the Department of Natural Resources.